Okay, so here we are with the video. Today is going to be Boynton Beach Inlet. It's what I was working on with my students in class this week, and I got a little off track with how I wanted to do it. So I wanted to do a new video that showed my process a little bit more clearly. So that's what I'm working on. It's a two-parter. First part will be ready on Saturday. Part 2 will be done Sunday evening. The trick with this painting, let me grab the actual photo here. The trick that we're doing with this one is that we're only using two colors to make all the colors in it. So we're going to use an orange and we're going to use a blue. It's important what color orange and what color blue we actually use. The wrong ones in the transitions will go a little bit too green, so we don't want that. So I'm going to use Pyrrole Orange Transparent, but I need it to have a little bit more yellow in it. That Pyrrole tends to run to the red side, so I'm going to add a little bit of yellow to that. And then I'm going to use a blue that's got some red in it, so I'm going to use Ultramarine Blue. That will help keep it so that when we transition from one color to another, we can keep it neutral instead of going green. We'll get a wide range of grays out of it. So without further ado, let's get into the video. It's going to be under an hour for part 1, and then part 2 will be about the same tomorrow. So I hope you enjoy it, and see you on the other side. Okay. So here we have the photo of the pump house, pretty much silhouetted, but there's some tone in there. And the jetty at Boynton Beach Inlet. This is at sunrise. The colors in the painting in the photo work with the colors that we're working with, which is, you wouldn't try to put a square peg into a round hole, but we can get away with painting this in two colors. And what I've done is, it's going to be these two colors, somewhere between yellow and yellow-orange. I had to mix a custom color for my orange because my Pyrrole orange is too red. So it's Pyrrole orange with a little bit of cadmium yellow in it. And then my blue, I'm using ultramarine with a tiny little bit of cobalt mixed into it. I've mixed up my colors, and I won't go back to the palette again. I'll just use those two colors. I've also made a pile of gray that goes that comes from those two colors. It's really all I have on my palette right now. Let's see if I can swing it down and show it to you. All right, so that's all I have. And now let me see if I can get the picture back in the frame. Okay, that's not too bad. I took a little time and did the drawing. You probably can't see the drawing too well, but it's a fairly simple drawing. I did take my time on it. I felt like I rushed it in the in-person class, so I took my time on it. We're going to do a wash that does the whole background. I'm going to use a 1-inch wash brush. This is a silver white edge washer, it's called. Edgewater wash. I'm going to wet the whole paper, and I'm going to keep my eyes on my photo. Let's see if I move this over, we can keep this here. Okay, there. So now we can both see it. Starting with some clean water, and I'm going to wet the whole page. I want it nice and wet. I don't want it damp. I want it to accept the colors we're going to put down. Should be nice and shiny wet. Before I came on with you guys, I did the drawing. It's a 4x6 drawing, so that scales to an 8x12 painting. So I marked out my paper as 8x12. I put a grid on it in thirds, just like the photograph has. That helped me make sure that I got everything the right size and in the right position. The key is, do your grid line very lightly and remember to erase it. If you don't erase your grid line, it'll come back through a light passage later that you won't be able to erase, and it will make you sad. All right, So my paper is nice and wet. And now looking at the photo, the top is blue. I'm not going to do any of these cloud shapes at all. I'm just going to do a wash that goes from the blue into the orange and then back down to the blue. And I'll have some of that gray in there as well. So I'm starting with some blue right across the top of the page. I already put my dirty brush in my clean water. That didn't take me long at all, and I did it. I'm going to introduce a little bit of the gold to neutralize the blue here. And we're doing this across the whole page. Everything beyond... Oops. I'll tape that in a minute. Everything beyond this background is darker except for the rails on the fence. There are some highlights on there. So I'm going to come back in and add some of that later with like a white or a light colored pencil, something like that. Now while I'm here, I'm going to strengthen this blue a little bit up in the top. Let it do what it wants to do. I'm going to take some of the gray that I mixed up as well as some of the orange and come right back into here. I want this to transition a little bit before it gets to that nice orange down here. And that runs into the water, which will then go to gray. A little bit of orange right over here. Put my gray in. A little bit more blue. I don't want to go too dark in the bottom right now because this is the light color that's reflecting the sky that's showing. We'll put the dark on top of that later. So really, this is the whole move for the first wash. I'm letting gravity pull my paint down, and which is making, because I went with a warmer blue that's got some red in it, and then an orange, the warmer blue, instead of going green the way cobalt or cerulean would, it's actually going to a gray and then to the orange. Had I picked a cooler blue, that might have been a problem for me later, or in this middle section, because it would have started to go green. All right, now I have to follow my own advice and not play too much. So I'm gonna just get this across here, and that's it. I'm gonna let it dry. So I'm gonna dry this, and then I'll come back and start to talk about what we're gonna do in the next layers. Okay, we are back, and I allowed my paper to dry. I did get a little bit of a blossom up here in the top, but we have clouds up there, so I can make that work. I'm not too worried about that. I have taped off right at the horizon where the water line is here in the photo. So here we can see the water at the horizon. There's some clouds that make that kind of indistinguished over on that side. But we're going to come across and put in the color for that. That's our next move. And it's some of the blue and some of the gray that we've made up. It's going to be lighter than the pump house is going to be, so we can't go too dark. But we want to get it in there. And it's going to sit right on top of that orange that we already put in. In fact, I'm going to bring it down to where the fence is to the gate. All right. And then over on this side, I'm going around the shape of the dark mass of the tree. Not too important to work. Oh. Okay, blot that out. Glad I caught that. I went to the wrong spot, guys. It is, no, it's not the wrong spot. I apologize. I had it right. Around the tree shape, the water line is there, right up to that horizon line, and we'll pull it right over to the edge of the pump house. By the way, I did darken the line for the pump house so I could see it. And what I can do is, just like before, after I get past the tree line shape, I can bring this right down into the fence. So like that. Okay, take the tape off. Oof, I didn't get a very clean line there, did I? I probably didn't let my paper dry enough. Gonna come in with a damp brush and try to clean this a little bit. It seems to be working. Yeah, I probably rushed this. My paper's still a little wet. But luckily, a damp brush, not too wet because you don't want it to blossom into where we put the water. And notice we put this water right on top of the orange from the sky that we put down. That color's in there and it looks more realistic that way. I need to let this dry again. When this is dry, I'm going to start to put in the colors for the building, which will be a gray that's got some orange tones in it for the roof because that's a little bit redder and it's darker than the body, and then kind of a gray for the body, and that'll come right down into the jetty, and we'll go from there. But this has to dry for a while, so I'm going to come back, I don't know, in about an hour. But through the magic of video, it will only feel like no time at all. All right, see you on the other side. All right, we're back. I'm gonna grab a smaller round brush. You can use a flat one too. I just tend to use more rounds than flats in my work. But that's entirely a choice up to you. I'm adding a little bit of warmth to my gray color. And I'm going to put in the base of the building. In fact, I'm going to put in the roof in the same color, and then I'll come in and put a dark on top of the roof. So I'm really trying to keep this about the values and only using the three colors that we've mixed up. I darkened up the gray a little bit and added it to the bottom. Switch back to my larger round brush. I'm using a number 12 here. And I'm just going to make sure that that gray is mixed up and juicy. Doesn't have to be too dark yet. We're just getting started. But I'm going to come in and put the first pass of the gray for the jetty. And that includes that shadow that's underneath the jetty. I'm going to put that all in one shape, coming right out of the bottom. Of the pump house. And I can see my painting starting to come together. This longer stretch of the jetty, what I'm trying to do is take a moment and switch up the color a little bit inside of that wet. So I'll go add a little bit more orange to it, then I add a little bit more blue to it. It's just more interesting if we get those colors mingled a little bit, especially early on when we're going to be covering it later. This line should be fairly straight because it's man-made. So I'm coming in and just fixing that. And I'm going to leave this here for today. Tomorrow we'll finish it. When we come back tomorrow, I'm going to add the roof. I'm going to add the clouds and this mass of a hill with grasses on it and start to define the water. But I think we're off to a really good start and it's coming together. I think this was easier steps than when I tried to do it in class. In class, I tried to separate the sky, leave this water blank, and then fill in this. It really didn't need to be done separated. We did the whole wash as one piece. I did work around the pump house, but that wasn't necessary. It's darker than the water, it's darker than the sky, so we could have just simply painted the background color, and that's a call for you to make. I've got my most basic shapes in, and we're going to take off from here. So I will edit this together and get it pushed out. This is Saturday. Sunday afternoon, I'll come back in and do part 2 of the video and have it ready for you guys. Have a great weekend.